Most people who experience anxiety want to get rid of it immediately, as soon as possible. Understandable, right? But what if anxiety isn't a random thing? What if it is intelligent feedback, a signal that is trying to draw your attention to something within that is out of alignment? My name is Jilly Wootton, and I'm your host for this, the Inner Pickle Podcast. I'm here for all the conversations to do with the emotional dilemmas that we can all face that make us feel stuck, how to untangle them and find a way forward. Now, today we're going to be talking about anxiety and the hidden messages that it can bring. But if you have a level of anxiety, if you're experiencing a level of anxiety which really concerns you, please seek the help of a medical caregiver. This podcast, although I think you'll find it helpful, is designed for educational and reflective purposes only. So, anxiety. I guess we need right now to kind of look at what we're talking about. I like to explain anxiety to my students and my clients as an alarm system, something that it's just this brilliantly designed thing. Maybe not in the modern world, but for ancient times when life was much more simple, it was able just simply, this alarm system, to detect a threat. So if there was something in the environment which threatened somebody's well-being, like a tiger or a lion or something like that, this alarm system would distribute in nanoseconds this huge cascade of chemicals which made the body roar into action to prepare for fight or flight. So what happened is the heart rate increased. Not all the blood, but loads more blood would go to the muscles in the arms and the legs, again, ready to be really strong to fight or to run really fast. Now, this mechanism is meant for short-term use. So we see the threat, we see what's going on, we have the energy or wherewithal to deal with it, and then everything calms right down again. But in today's modern world, where we can see so many things as a threat, it doesn't really work as well as that. So things like a meeting in the morning, or being late with the kids for school, late for a meeting, or meeting somebody new that you're a little bit intimidated by, this alarm system can go off all of the time. So when we look at anxiety, it's really useful to see it on a scale. So at one end of the scale, we have anxiety like that fleeting, that little, it's like a tingling sensation, isn't it? That little stomach wobble when we maybe are going to take our kids to a new school and we don't know anyone else. We think, I hope there's someone there I can talk to. Or we go into work and it's a big meeting and you want to do well in it, but you're well prepared, but there's still that, I hope this is going to be okay. And then right the way through, right the way through to times when you get up in the morning with that, and immediately that rush of adrenaline in your stomach. You, on the way to work, you feel anxious, you feel nervous, and your mind is going over what may or may not happen and what you have done and what you should do. And then throughout the day, there's this exhaustion that comes very often when this alarm system is going off all of the time. And then you've got right the way through to incredibly debilitating symptoms like complete insomnia, like this trigger going off all the time, like nightmares, like feeling absolutely exhausted, that kind of sleep, that kind of tiredness, that sleep doesn't touch. That level comes with many other things. That's, you know, symptoms of burnout and all sorts of stuff. So I want you to kind of see this anxiety today on a spectrum. Now, I would say that in all of the people that I have ever worked with, the most common presenting issue is anxiety. And I don't think there's hardly ever been anybody that doesn't have and come to see me, even if they're not coming about anxiety, they're experiencing some level of this alarm system going off in their life inappropriately. So when we look at those, the three main levels, the adrenaline, that cortisol, that all of those chemicals within that alarm system affect, it is the physical body, it is the emotional body, the way that we feel, and the mental body, the way that we think. So what happens? Well, at a physical level, we can experience tiredness. Remember, this system is meant to go off and then go on, then go off again. But if it's there all the time, we're on just constant alert. So there's that sense of never being able to rest properly, sometimes feeling overwhelmed. We can have increased heart rate. We can have poor digestion. We can feel, just like our immune system isn't working properly, always down with coughs and colds or minor illnesses. And if it goes on and on and on, often people will develop autoimmune issues as well. So what's happening there? Well, quite simply, all those chemicals are keeping the body on alert. They're keeping the body going. They're not letting the body go into rest and repair. Because if it is perceiving an intruder, if it's perceiving a danger, then it is certainly not going to allow your body's precious energy to go into things like rest and digest, improving your immune system, helping your body with its absorption of food. That all takes a sideline for what it sees as the more important issues, which is keeping you ready. So you can imagine all the other physical symptoms that people will get when they always feel on alert. The other part of this is the emotional body. So what happens in terms of the way that people feel when they have high anxiety or anxiety keep coming in, is they feel frightened. They feel scared of things. People will talk about it as if it's, I get nervous in that situation, or, oh God, I could never do that, or, oh no, that scares me. And so their lives are kind of interjected with periods of fear, and they feel that. They really feel that sense of nervousness. They feel overwhelmed. They can feel like it's all too much. They can feel a sense of tension. Mentally, and in terms of, this will also include our belief system, is what we experience is the brain going 24/7. So those chemicals aren't letting you just relax. I'm sorry, I've got a really itchy nose. It always happens on these things, doesn't it? Excuse me. There we go. A little bit of hay fever around at the moment. So what happens is, just on that physical level, the mind just keeps going. It just like that 24/7. And it will try to really control any uncertainty. When we're in that fight or flight, we don't like uncertain things. So it will overthink and it will predict things. It will go over and rehash things from the past. It will predict things from the future. And it's never really able to settle in the present. And we can understand that because the chemicals that are there are not letting it. One thing to say is, I've worked with so many people, and I've had an experience of anxiety myself, and it can make you feel like you're really broken. But this is why I wanted to do this podcast, because so often the anxiety is just pointing to something else that you need to pay attention to. So to recap then, we suffer physically, emotionally and mentally from that tension. I remember, excuse me, I remember a time many years ago when I was in I think I was my very early 30s, when I was lifting this really heavy box and pushing it up into the loft. And I got up into the loft and I suddenly felt really, really weird. It had been at the end of a very long weekend where I'd worked, and I was just putting some things away. And I came down and I just couldn't work out what it was. I got, like, my tummy hurt, my heart rate was going, I felt really shaky. I didn't know it was anxiety at the time. I didn't know that I, had pushed my body so hard at that time, that what my body, the hidden messages that my body was giving me at that time was to slow down, take more time out. I'd had a couple of really big life changes, and I was just flat out. I'd worked about 14 days on the trot. I was setting up a new business, and I was just giving it my all. And that anxiety said to me, from a mind, body, and the deepest parts of my soul, was, if you don't enjoy the process, you're not going to enjoy the outcome, girl. And I remember that was a really strong message I got when I sat and did the reflective work on it. So I've an experience of that myself. So I started this off by talking about the messages that anxiety can bring, and that we largely experience anxiety on that physical, emotional, and that mental stroke belief layers. And one of the first things to check out is, if you're experiencing anxiety, is just check out what you're eating. Because unstable blood sugars, eating loads of carbs if your body can't quite digest them, will cause a level of anxiety that is nothing to do with the way that you are as a person, nothing to do with your brain, nothing to do with your emotions. It's simply that the fuel you're giving yourself is just not the right kind of fuel, and your body's going, alarm, I'm sending out this alarm. So one of the things that I talk to about when I'm talking to my clients about this is that you've got to kind of become a detective. And for me, I'm celiac, and one of the reasons I realised eventually for the levels of exhaustion and the anxiety that I sometimes felt was when I'd had lots of wheat and lots of gluten. And now I'm not telling everyone to come off wheat and gluten, because that's not what this is about at all. But it's also that things that our body can't tolerate will just push out lots of adrenaline as an alarm bell. So, for instance, I was talking to a lady just a few weeks ago, and she was saying that when she got up in the morning, she was always tired, but always got this rush of adrenaline before she even got out of bed. And I asked her what she ate the night before, and she said, she'd eaten like jacket potatoes or pasta or pizzas. She was working really hard and been through a recent relationship breakup, and she just wasn't looking after herself food-wise, nutritionally. And so the minute she bought in more protein, and the minute she just cut down on the beers at night, that sounds like a lecture, isn't it? Because nothing is wrong with any of those things if you don't get anxiety. But if we get that waking anxiety, if we look at what we've had the day before, particularly in the evening, sometimes it's just a bit of a clue. Sometimes our body can't tolerate certain things that we're eating. So again, you get to be a bit of a detective, learn more about nutrition, learn more about the food, and just see if there are any messages that are coming from your body that is saying, hey, this is a bit of a flag here, bit of a flag you need to look at. The other area where we get to check out is, if we're experiencing anxiety, is our belief systems. Belief systems underpin so much of how we feel on an ongoing basis, on a day-to-day basis. So if you have a belief that you're not good enough, other people are better than you, then you will go into a meeting, you will meet a new group, a social group, and you will maybe try and people please. Do they like me? Oh, my bum looks too big in this, or what should I do? Or, oh, gosh, I've never got anything to say. You're always going to be on alert, because that new group perceiving that you're not enough sets off the alarm bells. So it might be low and hardly perceptible, but that adrenaline is there within your body, making you feel that little bit tense, that little bit foggy-headed. Because think about it, when we're meant to be on alert, when we're meant to be aware of our external environment for threat, and we're feeling this, and we're just seeing people and smiley faces, but inside we're interpreting that as something which isn't safe, then that adrenaline is going to make us feel uncomfortable. And what you tend to find is that over time, these beliefs will have patterned in, often from when we're much younger, or from, it can happen later on in life, but generally happens when we're younger. Things will happen and we just formulate a belief where we're not safe if we're not in control. We're not safe if we're not perfect. We're not safe unless everybody loves me, you know? And so start to just look at what is underpinning this anxiety. I'm going to ask or share with you some journaling questions in just a little bit, which will help you just really peel back these layers of what might be going on at a physical level, the beliefs, that mental level. The other thing that, the other area where I find that so many people with anxiety are not in alignment with, is ignoring their intuition. We've all got these built-in systems. We get a sense of what feels right for us. But again, because of our beliefs, we often ignore it. We often know what is right for us, but we don't do it because we want to please someone else, or we don't want to upset somebody, or we feel because of those beliefs that we ought to do something. So instead of thinking, how do I stop this anxiety? We get to start thinking, what do I start to look at? What areas do I look at that I can begin to shift towards my more aligned self? Anxiety will often lay waste to our intuition, because anxiety makes our senses very keenly attuned to everything and everybody around us. And it stops us just coming inwards and going into that reflective place and knowing what's right for you. Although I'm guessing that most of you will, when you have a quiet moment, you kind of already know. But we still sometimes get to ignore things that we know are right and stay even in situations that don't feel right because of our beliefs. I'll never get another partner. If I leave this job, there's no point in me going on interviews because I'll never get anything else as good as this. I'll never get paid this much. Well, got to start looking at, they're just thoughts, but what's the beliefs that are underpinning those thoughts? The fourth area where I find that the messages from the body get hidden are when we're really living outside of our personal capacity. And that also involves when we're doing stuff we don't want to be doing. But when we're living at a pace or a speed it's not that you can't keep up with it. It's just that it's not right for you. Normally, if it's something that you love, even if there's a lot to do, we can find the energy and the resources to take that. We're enjoying what we're doing, so we can find that space to rest and repair. But if we've got a belief, even if it's something we really love and we're enjoying, if we've got a belief that, this has got to work, nothing else, I've got to be perfect, we're going to be driven to a point where we won't take breaks. We're on alert all the time. That alarm is going off all the time. So we live beyond our personal capacity, and we never take that time for rest and repair. So let's look at the journaling questions, which I'm going to share with you now, that might help you become the detective to find out those messages of misalignment that anxiety might be calling you to. So the first one is when does it happen? You might live a life that is great and it's fine, except when you speak to one sibling or a parent or a particular friend. What beliefs, what experience, what is going on then there? So we've got to look at when you have it. Is family life fantastic, but you just get it with certain people at work or in certain situations? So people, for instance, who maybe there's a little bit of anxiety around people with authority, look at when it happens. And then we get to look at your history. When did it start? Well, I was bullied a bit as a kid. Yet those patterns and beliefs that were instilled at that time are still playing out now. So we get to look at when it happens. We get to look at the history. In terms of the history, we can see maybe you were completely all right for 20, 25, 30 years. Then you had a bad divorce or illness. Or something happens, and from that point onwards, or a trauma of some sort, and you're never quite right after that. Or like a lot of my clients, they've always had a level of anxiety and people pleasing and stuff like that. But then they will have like a life crisis, like an illness, like a divorce, a bereavement, or even burnout. And then this completely escalates the need, it's like no more, I'm done, and that's when they seek help. So look at the history, look at when you started to experience something. If it was from really early doors and you can't remember a time without it, I would also look to the physical stuff, but also you look at your beliefs, like what is playing on at that mental level, what is happening. What do I know about me that gives an indication that is where that belief and my experience now is from? So look at when, examine your history, look at the timings, and then you get to ask yourself also, and this is where your deep knowing comes in. This is where this comes in, because your heart always knows, even if it's hard to find out those messages. It's like, what feels misaligned? Is it a relationship that you're tolerating? Is it work? Is it behavior in yourself? Is it what are you ignoring that you really know is misaligned? So you get to ask yourself that. And then I would ask, if you come back with something like, but Jilly, I really love this. I love my job. I love this relationship. So not long ago, I questioned a friend. She said to me, what do you think about this? It was somebody she was working with. I don't know them myself. I've just heard her talk about them a lot. And I said, well, how do you feel? And she started talking about, it's really great. It's really, really fun. But I just get really anxious around it. And I was saying, well, where's that coming from? You might really enjoy it. And she said, well, it's really important to me. So we drilled down on this, it being really important. And actually the belief underneath it was, if I fail at this, then I'll never get another chance. Because underneath it was a belief that she's not good enough. And she saw this as her only opportunity. So do you see how we can really drill down on to find out where the physical, the mental belief system, the emotions, just when we get anxiety in those areas, that emotional layer, that mental layer, that physical layer, we can start to drill down to find what's really underneath it. And these journaling questions will help you. One of the main things I think where anxiety comes from is the trauma. Big T's, like obvious traumas, like really nasty stuff that's gone on, and the little traumas from early days which have formulated our belief system. So things that have happened earlier in life, you might have developed a way of being that says you've always got to be perfect to stay safe, otherwise the alarm bells go off. I've got to be perfect. I've got to control this situation. I've got to be in control, otherwise the alarm bells go off. I've got to keep quiet and be good and no trouble, otherwise the alarm bells go off. Now, yes, I have talked about the food stuff. It's really important, right? But that belief stuff is so important. I cannot underline it enough. So what do you get to do about it when you find those beliefs? Well, part of it is awareness, and where you where you see it and observe it showing up, and you get to stand back and observe it. Sometimes people might need to go and get some professional help or get a bit of input from books and personal development, things like that. But one of the main things is learning to stay safe in those environments. You can do it through that lovely conscious breathing, which I've talked to you about, that lovely heart math breathing where we breathe in for 4 and out for 4, just to really steady ourselves. One thing I really want to leave you with today is that anxiety, even if it's from trauma, from complex trauma, from massive phobias, right the way through to that nervousness before you go into a meeting, can make us feel really broken. It can make us feel as though we're not resilient enough. It can make us feel as though we're not in control of our lives. It can make us feel as though we're just surviving. And I just want to say that for most people, there's a way through with that. And what I've talked about today is just the start. Drill down, have your own back, be your own detective, and just absolutely know that you are not broken. Anxiety is rarely a random thing, hence suggesting getting to see your caregivers, your medical caregivers, your doctors and stuff, if that's worrying you. But you can also do so much yourself with food, taking care of yourself, and looking after those beliefs. So I wish you well with all of this. Any questions or any thoughts, just email me or drop some messages below, and I look forward to catching up with you and talking to you again at the next podcast.